This happened about 5 years ago, and it's burned into my memory like a scar. I was driving with my buddy Ryan on a road trip from Michigan down to North Carolina. We decided to take the scenic way, winding mountain roads instead of highways with tolls. We weren't in a rush, so we trusted the GPS, even when it rerouted us onto smaller and smaller roads. Somewhere in West Virginia, we took what looked like a normal exit. The GPS claimed it would connect us back to the interstate eventually. At first, it seemed fine, just thick trees on both sides, the occasional farmhouse, the kind of backwoods you almost expect when you're out there. But then the road narrowed. We hadn't seen another car in at least half an hour. My gas light came on, and that gnawing unease started settling in. Finally, we spotted a faded green sign with peeling paint. It pointed toward some little town neither of us had ever heard of. We figured, fine, there has to be a gas station. So we followed it. The road curved down into a valley. And pretty soon, we were rolling through what passed for a main street, if you could even call it that. Most of the houses and storefronts looked abandoned. Sagging porches, boarded windows, roofs caving in. But what froze me wasn't the buildings. It was the people. They were everywhere, standing on porches, leaning in doorways, sitting in old plastic chairs. And every single one of them was staring at us. Not curious stares. Not friendly. Just hollow. Hostile. Nobody waved. Nobody turned away. Just eyes tracking our car as we passed. I joked to Ryan, guess we found the wrong side of the mountains. But inside, my stomach twisted into a knot. At the very end of the street, there was a gas station. Old, cracked sign, one single pump with the rolling numbers instead of a digital screen. The lights inside flickered weakly. We needed gas. So I pulled in. Ryan stayed in the car. I walked inside. The door creaked open, and a weak little chime rang out. Behind the counter stood an old man. Stringy gray hair, deep wrinkles, eyes that didn't blink enough. I slid a bill across the counter and said, "Pump one, $20. He rang it up in silence. When he handed me the receipt, he leaned forward just slightly and whispered in the quietest voice, "Don't stay here after dark." The words chilled me to the bone. He said it like he wasn't supposed to, like somebody might be listening. I didn't respond. I just nodded, grabbed the receipt, and bolted outside. Ryan looked at me confused. "Why'd you rush out like that?" "Just get in the car," I said. "We're leaving." We didn't even wait for the tank to fill. I slammed the nozzle back, jumped into the driver's seat, and peeled out of that station. That's when I saw them. Headlights. At first, I thought it was nothing, just another car pulling onto the road. But mile after mile, turn after turn, those headlights stayed glued to us. I sped up. They sped up. I slowed on a sharp curve. They slowed too. No other cars. No signs of life. Just us and them. My hands were tight on the wheel. My heart hammered so hard I could feel in my throat. Finally, salvation. A sign for the interstate. I floored it onto the exit, tires screeching, thinking we'd lose them on the highway. But the highway was empty. Just us and those headlights still behind. Half a mile later, without warning, the car veered off onto another exit. No blinke. No hesitation. Just gone. The silence in our car was deafening. After a long time, Ryan finally asked, "What did that guy in the gas station say to you?" I kept my eyes locked on the road, and I told him the truth. To this day, I don't know if that car was just coincidence or if the locals had something planned for us. But I know one thing. I will never take a random exit in the mountains again. It was a long time ago, back before cell phones are common. I was in my early 30s, a mom of 3, and that day I had taken the 2 youngest, just 1 and 3 years old, to the pediatrician. The doctor's office was in Macon, Georgia, a full hour away from our house. Because we lived so far out, the office always gave us the last appointments of the day. We were grateful for that. It saved me from making multiple long trips. This time, though, it was different. The doctor had just built a brand new facility, isolated, far back on a fresh lot off the highway. It was modern, clean, and nicer than the old building, but it was also out there in the middle of nowhere. When I parked, There were only a few cars in the lot. I pulled close to the front, got the kids out of their car seats, and went inside. An hour later, after waiting, paying, and finishing the appointment, we came back outside. By then, mine was the only car left. I buckled the kids in, slid into the driver's seat, and turned the key. Nothing. Just an odd clicking sound. The staff were locking the doors for the night. Embarrassed, I hurried back, knocked, and asked to use their phone. I found a nearby service station in the phone book. The man on the line said he'd come, but it might take a while. So I went back out, rolled down the windows, and settled the kids in again. We waited. One by one, the last few employees drove away, disappearing behind the building until we were completely alone. It was still daylight, but the sun was sinking lower. I dug through bags for snacks, a bottle for the baby, and tried to keep everyone comfortable. That's when a pickup truck pulled into the empty lot. A man got out, middle-aged, scruffy, but smiling. He nodded politely and said he'd take a look. Relieved, I thanked him. He raised the hood, leaned in, and started fiddling with something. I stayed in the driver's seat with the door open, waiting for him to say, "Try it now." But instead, he kept repeating, "It's just a loose wire. Just a loose wire. Come up here. I'll show you which one it is, so you'll never have this problem again." I laughed it off politely, shaking my head. I wouldn't know what I was looking at anyway, I told him. I stayed seated, glancing back at the kids. But he kept insisting, over and over, asking me to come stand closer. His voice even carried a flirtatious tone, though it grew sharper when I refused. Something in my gut twisted. The sun was lower now, the parking lot empty, no houses, no traffic. I didn't want to make him angry, but I also wasn't about to step away from my children. And then, headlights. Another truck pulled into the lot. The man under my hood instantly slammed it shut, ran to his own pickup, jumped inside, and sped away without a single word. I just sat there stunned, confused, and now frightened. Who was this new arrival? Another man stepped out, but immediately introduced himself. His name and voice matched the service station employee I'd spoken to on the phone earlier. He even called me by name, apologized for the delay, and then glanced down the road where the first man had vanished. "Who was that?" he asked. I blinked, still processing. "I thought that was you." The real mechanic frowned. He shook his head, then grabbed jumper cables and got to work. Grateful, I sat back in the driver's seat, watching the kids, waiting for the words I'd been longing to hear. "Try it now." But instead, he walked over to my door, holding something in his hands. "Ma'am," he said slowly, his voice uneasy, "is this yours?" In his grip was a long, thin, rust-covered blade-like tool, nearly 1.5 feet in length. It looked like a cross between a bayonet and an oversized pair of surgical scissors. At first glance, I thought it was some old piece of junk. I shook my head. I've never seen that before. Where was it? He looked pale. "Under the hood," he said quietly. "Just sitting on top." Confused, I brushed it off. I was hot, the kids were fussy, and I just wanted the car to start. But he wouldn't let it go. "Ma'am," he said again, almost whispering, "these aren't old. Look at the edges. They've just been sharpened." And sure enough, despite the rust, the tips gleamed silver, razor sharp. He fixed the Jeep, it started immediately, and I paid him. But before leaving, he pressed the object into my hand one last time. His eyes were serious. "I don't know what was about to happen here," he said softly, "but I'm glad I got here when I did." Later that night, after getting the kids safely home, I called the police. The officer listened, then casually suggested the object sounded like specialized surgical shears. He wasn't interested in taking them. For years, I kept them wrapped in newspaper in storage, untouched, until we eventually moved away. And during that time, women were going missing across Georgia. Some were found. Some never were. I often wonder, what would have happened if the real mechanic hadn't arrived at that exact moment? Will my children have lost their mother that night? Will I have lost them? I'll never know. But one thing is certain. I was lucky to make it home. It was the summer of 2006. I was 20 years old, still new to the freedom of driving, since I'd only got my license that January. Driving opened doors for me, and I love solo road trips, visiting friends across New England and the mid-Atlantic states. But I looked younger than I was. At just over 5 feet tall, people often mistook me for a high school student, even though I was in my early 20s. That day, I was headed to southern Pennsylvania to visit my best friend for a long weekend. Her parents were away, the house was ours, and we had plans: drinking, hot tubbing, laughing ourselves silly at planet Earth while tipsy, running through cornfields at night, making dumb memories. I was excited. The drive down I-78 was perfect, sun high, music up, and my little car cruising along. Crossing from New Jersey into Pennsylvania, I pulled off at one of the first rest stops for gas and snacks. It was an ordinary stop until I saw him. A man stepped out of a black pickup parked a few spaces from mine. Stocky build, late 30s or early 40s, with dark brown hair, a mustache, and a goatee. Plain black t-shirt, jeans. But what froze me wasn't his clothes, it was his eyes. His stare was unblinking, focused, too direct. He walked toward me fast, closing the space before I could move. "You from around here?" he asked. He'd seen my Connecticut plates, but his tone was probing. He wanted more. "Where you headed? Got any plans?" His words tumbled out, strange, intrusive. Then came the invitation: mini golf, or maybe a movie. He said he had time to kill before his plans later. Every instinct in me screamed. I shook my head, muttered that I didn't know the area, and walked quickly toward the store. That's when he shouted, loud enough to startle a family coming out the door. "You're gorgeous," he screamed. His tone wasn't playful. It was aggressive, sharp, the kind of shout that makes the hair rise on your neck. I didn't turn around. I went inside. But moments later, he followed me. Staring. Watching. I ducked into the bathroom, locked the door, and stayed there for 10 minutes, texting my friend about the creep pacing outside. When I finally came out, he was gone. I breathed relief, took my time buying sour gummy worms and trail mix, and walked out. His truck wasn't there. I gassed up, ready to put the whole weird encounter behind me. But when I pulled up to the on-ramp for I-78, I heard honking. Persistent. Insistent. I looked left, and my stomach dropped. He was there, parked on the dirt road that ran parallel to the ramp, facing the gas station directly, his horn blaring, his arm waving wildly, beckoning me toward him. He'd been waiting. I didn't think. I floored it, shooting up the on-ramp and back onto the interstate. In my rearview mirror, headlights. The black pickup swerved out, merging right behind me. My hand shook on the wheel as I called my friend, voice trembling. "He's following me." I drove too fast, weaving dangerously, heart pounding like a drum. Every mirror check, his truck still there, tailing me, matching my speed. Exit after exit, he stayed. Then, just as suddenly, he pulled off. No blinke. No warning. He was gone. I was still shaking hours later when I reached my friend's house. We had a plan. If I saw the truck again, she'd direct me to the police station instead of home. Thankfully, I never did. Years passed. I told the story sometimes as just a creepy encounter. Until one day, talking with a friend obsessed with true crime, I mentioned it half-jokingly. She Googled, and the first name that came up, Adam Leroy Lane, a convicted serial killer, active in Pennsylvania around 2006 and 2007. His mugshot looked almost exactly like the man at the rest stop. Stocky, brown hair, mustache, goatee. The timeline, the age, the area, all of it lined up. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe my memory filled in blanks. But to this day, I wonder, was I face to face with a serial killer that summer afternoon? And if I had made just one different choice, gone to his car, agreed to his invitation, pulled over when he honked, would I have been one of his victims,